don't know if I'm going to be the only token liberal here, but I'll try.
I'm glad at least one showed up. I appreciate it.
Hopefully there's more. I'll try my best to play that role. So the current administration has engaged in lawfare, cancel culture, and ideological purity tests, and a lot of things that they've blamed the left for doing. I can give many examples, like Jimmy Kimmel's show being canceled. Luckily, it's coming back, but that's kind of.
I guess he wasn't canceled, was he?
Right,
I think you've kind of undercut your own premise.
It kind of affects the whole media landscape. So Trump trying to fire the member of the Federal Reserve Board by coming up with charges that aren't even being held up in court.
Are they? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. RFK Jr., just one more example, RFK Jr. firing anyone who disagrees with him on vaccines, firing a 17-member scientific board just because he wants more discussion.
What I'm trying to figure out
arguments. So my question is, do you agree with these? Do you disagree with these actions, or do you believe that these means justify the ends of the America that you want to happen?
I think I'd want a little more clarity on the premise, because just to use your first example, you said that the Trump administration is engaging in cancel culture and the suppression of free speech because the administration got Jimmy Kimmel canceled. First of all, that isn't true. The affiliates got Jimmy Kimmel canceled because he made egregious lies about the murder of Charlie Kirk based on nothing, on public airwaves that have to be licensed from the federal government in accordance with the FCC, which exists to regulate broadcast networks.
And it always said things like that. The issue is that 12 hours before he was fired, the FCC head went and said, "Oh, we're going to try to do things they're not going to like. They better change their conduct."
Right.
They didn't have.
But hold on.
They didn't have legal measures. All they had was this threat, and using threats to silence opposition. Like if they have a case, if they have a law, if they have a regulation, go for it. There's no regulation. They're just trying to scare him, and that's scary to me.
But the problem is, even if that were true, and I'm disputing that claim, but even if it were true that Jimmy Kimmel were fired because the FCC pressured him, he's not fired. His show is back on the air. So that example, I think, totally undercuts the point you're trying to make. When you say that Bobby Kennedy, as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, has changed out some of the personnel, yeah, that's what elections do. That's the whole point, is you elect people, and then the president appoints cabinet secretaries, and they replace them with the people that they want in the cabinet. So that's all the prerogative of the president. None of this is out of the ordinary. Every kind of administration would do it.
Sorry, to say that it didn't happen, I don't want to bring a different, Trump attempted assassination. Sure, I know it's a bad example right now, but sure, that was unsuccessful, just like firing Jimmy Kimmel was unsuccessful, but it affects our entire culture, our entire landscape. You can't just ignore, say, it never happened, and it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the most apt comparison. It would be entirely within the rights and actually the very purpose of the FCC to regulate the broadcast networks, and it's generally frowned upon to murder presidential candidates. So I don't see the equivalence. If
they say it's misinformation, like conservatives using misinformation to try to go after political opponents,
there's no.
But does the ends justify the means? Just because
when you say the end,
you do it.
When you're asking me if the ends justify the means, you're suggesting there's a kind of hypocrisy here. There's no hypocrisy to the FCC regulating broadcast networks. That's the point. There's no hypocrisy to the Secretary of Health and Human Services changing out his staff. That's what he does.
They have never done this. They have never done this.
Yes, they have. Cabinet secretaries change out their staff all the time.
Has not to remove the major broadcasters. I want to have
the FCC has this. The FCC has the statutory authority and responsibility to regulate the networks, including in cases of inciting public harm. And by the way, there is no right of a news network to affiliate stations, and there's no right of a news network or a comedy network, so-called, to lie, to tell egregious lies on public airwaves. If Jimmy Kimmel wants to do that on a podcast, he might get better ratings than he does on his network television show, which is in the doldrums, but he has no right to do it on public airwaves. And there's no hypocrisy. There's no double standard.
One thing, silencing people for saying lies. What is a lie? What is truth?
A lie is the opposite of the truth. And what is truth is what Pontius Pilate asked to Christ before he sentenced him to the cross. It's the line of a cynic that surrenders his reason.
He never said anything untrue. He was quoting the governor of Utah who said this person didn't come
Jimmy Kimmel never said anything untrue?
From a different country.
Jimmy Kimmel never said anything. Jimmy Kimmel said that the shooter was a MAGA Republican, and that's a lie. There's no evidence.
One of us, and he quoted by Republicans. Look, we can debate on what.
We don't have to debate. It's a lie. It's an obvious and egregious lie. We don't need to pretend that this is complicated at all. The shooter was a radical left-wing activist who inscribed Antifa slogans on the bullets and was dating a trans furry boyfriend. I don't think he voted for Trump. Kimmel lied. The audience turned on him. The affiliates turned on him. He deserves to lose his job. I'm frankly disappointed that he's getting his job again, but I'm confident even fewer people will watch it this time.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm glad you understood my point.
What are you saying then? I guess I don't understand.
I'm not engaging with my point. I thought the whole point of this was not.
I thought you just said that Jimmy Kimmel didn't lie. Isn't that what you said? I think that's what you said.
Jimmy Kimmel didn't. Look. First off, okay. Even if we're not going to go on every single word and analyze it, but if we're going to put people off the air for lying, that is a dangerous place to be in. That is a dangerous.
I don't know. I just think that's what public airwaves do. We already have the right to do it. We should do it.
Something is true, because right now.
Well, I guess I think.
It's a sliding. It's a.
I think I can get to the heart. I think I can get to the heart of the point that you might be endeavoring to make, which is, you're asking how can we discern the difference between truth and lies? Who's to say what is fit for the public airwaves and what is not fit? Who's to say what is true? And I guess my answer to that, and the traditional American answer to that, is someone's going to say that. You and I can say that. We have a representative government. In principle, we have a self-government. And so we must have confidence in our reason, our ability to discern the difference between truth and falsehood, right and wrong. If we surrender that ability out of moral relativism, out of a squishy kind of cowardice, out of a lack of confidence in ourselves, then what we are doing necessarily is surrendering self-government and the entire American project. Many people would like to do that. I'm not willing to do that. I think we can tell the difference between right and wrong, truth and lies. We should promote the truth, we should suppress the lies, and we should have a good country.
So we shouldn't surrender that to the government. We shouldn't have the government.
I thought we had a self-government.
What is true and what is not true?
We necessarily do that by having a judiciary, for instance. We necessarily do that by having legislators who are making moral judgments. When we say that we have a self-government, then what we're saying is that the government in some way is reflecting our view of things, and it comes from our reason.
We also have a judiciary and a Congress, not just the president.
In a what? I don't know, I didn't catch the end of that. Okay. I think the point has been made.
Now is our factor time.
First, what happened to Jimmy Kimmel? On September 17, ABC suspended Times' Jimmy Kimmel Live! After controversial remarks about Charlie Kirk. Several affiliates, including Nexstar and Sinclair, refused to air the program. The suspension sparked a week of media backlash and public boycotts until Disney announced Kimmel's reinstatement on September 22. By September 26, all affiliates had resumed airing, restoring full national coverage. Second, the relationship between network and affiliate in U.S. broadcasting. National networks like ABC or NBC provide shows, but it's the local affiliates who decide whether to air them. Each affiliate is independently licensed and can refuse programming if they see risks or controversies. This relationship means a show's national reach depends not just on the network, but also on hundreds of local stations working together. Okay, here comes the discussion. First, is the FCC's action against Jimmy Kimmel grounded in law and precedent? The FCC can regulate broadcasters under federal law, specifically rules against hoaxes that endanger public safety. But precedent mostly deals with indecent or obscene content, not political commentary or satire. So legally, yes, there is a framework, but historically, cases like Kimmel's don't fall neatly under FCC authority. Second, does the president have the authority to fire Federal Reserve Board members? And was Trump's justification valid? Can the president fire Federal Reserve Board members? Legally, yes, but only for cause, under 12 U.S. Code Section 242. President Trump attempted to remove Lisa Cook, citing mortgage fraud allegations from before her appointment. But the validity of this reasoning remains uncertain, and the Supreme Court is expected to review the case in early 2026. Third, did RFK Jr. really fire people who disagreed with him on vaccines? Was he legally entitled to do so, and how common are such cabinet changes? RFK Jr. dismissed all 17 members of the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee, a move legally permissible under the Federal Advisory Committee Act. However, the action raised questions of validity since members are also protected under the Whistleblower Protection Act. Dr. Jean Marazzo even filed a complaint alleging political disregard for vaccine science. The issue highlights tension between presidential authority and scientific independence. At here, we have to stop and dig deeper. What are RFK Jr. vaccine policies? RFK Jr.'s new advisory committee has taken a narrower approach. COVID-19 vaccines are no longer universally recommended, but limited to certain groups. Flu shots remain advised, though demersal preservatives face increased scrutiny. Childhood vaccines like MMR are still required, but the emphasis has shifted toward parental choice. Supporters argue this reduces financial burden, while critics warn it undermines herd immunity. Finally, is comparing the Trump assassination attempt with the Jimmy Kimmel case a valid equivalence? Some argue that a failed assassination attempt and a failed suspension both still have impact. But legally and ethically, the two cannot be equated. Under international law, attempts on a leader's life are crimes against the basic human rights, while administrative disputes over a talk show fall under regulatory debate. This comparison is a false equivalence.